Marcus Dorsey was an easygoing guy until someone messed with his stuff. And today, someone had. He had been tracking his package for weeks, waiting anxiously for the notification that it had finally arrived. When his phone buzzed with a message reading delivered, he practically bolted out the door. But the porch was empty. At first, he thought it was a mistake. Maybe the driver had left it somewhere else. He checked behind the flower pots, near the garage, even by the side gate. Nothing. He rechecked his tracking information. The system insisted it was there, sitting safely on his porch. His stomach twisted. Porch pirates? In this neighborhood? Marcus lived in a so-called safe community, one where the homeowners association prided itself on maintaining order. Their overpriced newsletters boasted about low crime rates, high property values, and strict enforcement of community rules. He had never imagined something like this happening here. That's when he remembered his security cameras. Pulling out his phone, he scrolled through the footage until he reached the time of delivery. He saw the mailman walk up, place the package down exactly where it should be, snap a quick photo, and leave. The package sat there, undisturbed, for about 20 minutes. Then she appeared. A woman strode confidently up the driveway, head held high as if she owned the place. It only took a second for Marcus to recognize her. Patricia Whitmore, the HOA president. His jaw clenched as he watched the footage. She didn't hesitate, didn't even look around to see if anyone was watching. She simply walked up, grabbed his package, tucked it under her arm, and strolled off as if she had every right to take it. Marcus's blood boiled. Who the hell did she think she was? This wasn't some misplaced fine or a ridiculous HOA violation notice. This was theft. And not just any theft, mail theft. A federal crime. He took a deep breath, trying to control his rising fury. He wasn't going to let this slide. Without hesitation, he grabbed his phone and marched straight to Patricia's house. It wasn't hard to find. Hers was the one with the perfectly manicured lawn, the pristine HOA-approved color scheme, and the nauseatingly perfect decorations that made the entire street look dull by comparison. He rang the doorbell and folded his arms. Moments later, Patricia opened the door, a smug smile already plastered on her face. Marcus, she said, crossing her arms. What can I do for you? I want my package back. Her smile didn't falter. Package? I have no idea what you're talking about. Marcus pulled out his phone and hit play. The footage spoke for itself. Patricia's face paled slightly, but to his amazement, she didn't even flinch. Oh, that package, she said, voice dripping with false innocence. Yes, I took it. It was left out in the open. I was simply keeping it safe. Marcus blinked. Safe. She sighed dramatically. It was just sitting there. Anyone could have taken it. As HOA president, I take security very seriously. I plan to return it to you at the next board meeting. Marcus let out a bitter laugh. That's nonsense. You stole my package. Give it back. She scoffed. You should really be thanking me. Honestly, with how irresponsible some homeowners are, leaving things outside like that. Cut the crap, Patricia. Give me my package. Now. Her lips curled into a smug smile. I'm afraid it's already been processed. He frowned. Processed? She waved a hand dismissively. We have rules in this neighborhood. Packages left unattended for too long are considered abandoned property. As HOA president, I have the authority to confiscate and redistribute as needed. Marcus let out a short, humorless laugh. That's not a thing. That's not how the HOA works. That's not how anything works. Patricia tilted her head, still smirking. Well, you'll have to take it up with the board then. I'm sure they'll agree with me. Marcus clenched his fists. Fine. I'll take it up with the police. For the first time, a flicker of uncertainty crossed her face. Maybe even fear. But it was gone just as fast. Oh, don't be dramatic, she scoffed. It was just a package. Marcus narrowed his eyes. It was a federal offense, Patricia. Mail theft is a serious crime. You might think your little HOA kingdom makes you untouchable, but let's see how well that smug attitude holds up when the authorities get involved. She hesitated. You wouldn't dare. Marcus pulled out his phone. Watch me. Patricia stared at him for a long moment, then huffed. All right. No need to get so worked up. I'll look into where your package ended up. Do that, he said. Because if I don't have it back by tomorrow, I'm pressing charges. He turned on his heel and walked away, fuming. Patricia might have thought she was untouchable, but she was about to learn just how wrong she was. This wasn't over. Marcus didn't sleep much that night. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Patricia's smug face, her condescending smirk as she dismissed his stolen package like it was her right to take it. By morning, his anger had settled into something colder, determination. He wasn't just going to get his package back. He was going to make sure she never pulled something like this again. At exactly 9 a.m., he marched back to her house. This time, he wasn't alone. With Patricia gone, the neighborhood was in a state of transition. The HOA, now leaderless, was in chaos. For the first time in years, homeowners weren't terrified of receiving surprise fines or mysterious violation notices. But Marcus knew better than to think the fight was over. Greg had been up all night sifting through old HOA records. When Marcus arrived at his house the next morning, Greg was sitting at his kitchen table, surrounded by stacks of documents and an open laptop. "I knew Patricia was bad," Greg said, rubbing his temples. "But this is on another level." Marcus pulled up a chair. "What did you find?" Greg tapped on his laptop screen. "Misappropriation of funds. Unauthorized fees. Fake maintenance charges. She's been draining money from the HOA for years. And look at this, she used HOA funds to cover personal expenses. Plane tickets, spa treatments, even a luxury retreat in Hawaii." Marcus let out a low whistle. Damn, she wasn't just stealing packages. She was running a full-blown scam. Greg nodded. "And it gets worse. She approved ridiculous fines against homeowners she didn't like, sometimes for things that weren't even in the bylaws. But her friends? They got away with everything. We're talking unapproved construction projects, illegally parked RVs, and noise complaints swept under the rug." Marcus leaned back in his chair. "So what do we do?" Greg grinned. "We expose everything. We take it to the board, the community, and if we have to, the police. Patricia might be gone, but her corruption isn't. It's time to clean house." That evening, Beth called an emergency HOA meeting. Nearly the entire neighborhood showed up. People who had never attended before suddenly had a lot to say. Beth stood at the front of the community center. "Tonight, we decide the future of this HOA. Patricia may be gone, but the damage she did is still here. We have proof of fraud, theft, and abuse of power. The question is, what are we going to do about it?" Angry murmurs filled the room. Greg stood up and held up a folder. "We've gathered enough evidence to demand a full audit. Every fine, every expense, every dollar spent under Patricia's leadership. If we want real change, we have to take action now." A woman in the crowd spoke up. "How do we know the next person in charge won't be just as bad?" Beth nodded. "That's why we're voting on a new board tonight. No more secret meetings. No more power-hungry HOA presidents. It's time we take back our community." Hands shot up. The vote was unanimous. The old board was officially dissolved, and new leadership was elected, including Beth as president and Greg as treasurer. Marcus turned to Greg with a grin. "Well, looks like you've got a new job." Greg chuckled. "As long as we don't get another Patricia, I'll take it." With the new HOA board in place, Marcus, Greg, and Beth wasted no time digging through Patricia's records. The audit confirmed their worst suspicions. Patricia had embezzled tens of thousands of dollars. The evidence was overwhelming. They turned everything over to the authorities. A week later, Marcus got a call from the local police department. "Mr. Dorsey, we just wanted to inform you that additional charges are being filed against Patricia Whitmore. Given the extent of the fraud, she's looking at a lengthy legal battle and possibly even jail time." Marcus grinned. "Good. It's about time." Months passed, and for the first time in years, the neighborhood felt peaceful. The HOA, now under new leadership, focused on actual improvements, not petty fines and intimidation tactics. People felt like they had their community back. One afternoon, Marcus stood outside his house, watching as a moving truck pulled away from Patricia's old home. Greg joined him, hands in his pockets. "Never thought I'd see the day." Marcus smirked. "Good riddance." Beth walked over, smiling. "The HOA is finally working for the people instead of against them." Greg nudged Marcus. "So, what's next?" Marcus exhaled, glancing around the peaceful neighborhood. "For once, I think we can just enjoy it." The three of them stood there for a moment, taking it all in. No more random fines. No more stolen mail. No more Patricia. For the first time in a long time, the neighborhood truly felt like home. He had called a couple of his neighbors, people who had also dealt with Patricia's nonsense. They weren't victims of stolen packages, as far as they knew, but they had received ridiculous HOA fines, unfair warnings, and threats of liens over the most minor infractions. Patricia had ruled the HOA like a queen, but today, she was about to get dethroned. He rang her doorbell, jaw tight. Patricia opened the door wearing a silky robe, holding a cup of coffee like she didn't have a care in the world. When she saw the group standing behind Marcus, her eyes narrowed just a bit. Well, this is unexpected. She sipped her coffee slowly. Back so soon. I want my package, Patricia, Marcus said, voice steady now. She sighed dramatically, stepping onto her porch. I told you already, I was keeping it safe. But seeing as you insist on making a scene. You stole it, he cut in, and you lied about HOA rules to justify it. Patricia gave him a tight smile. Let's not be so dramatic. I was merely enforcing HOA policies. You really should read the guidelines. That's a lie, a voice said from the side. It was Greg, one of the neighbors, a long-time resident. There's nothing in the HOA bylaws about confiscating packages. I've read every page. Patricia's eye twitched. Well, it's an unwritten rule. Greg scoffed. Mail theft is a federal crime, Patricia. And for the first time, she faltered. Patricia's hesitation lasted only a second before she regained her composure. You people just don't understand the responsibilities of running a neighborhood. I was merely doing what was best for the community. Marcus crossed his arms. By stealing people's packages? Greg shook his head. This isn't about keeping the community safe, Patricia. It's about control. More neighbors had gathered by now, whispering among themselves. Some had dealt with Patricia's tactics before: random fines, passive-aggressive warning letters, even threats of liens over the most ridiculous infractions. But now, seeing her blatant theft, their frustration turned to anger. Beth, a retired school teacher, stepped forward. If you really had the community's best interest at heart, then you won't mind showing us where these so-called confiscated packages are. Patricia's fingers tightened around her coffee cup. I don't have time for this. If you have complaints, you can bring them up at the next HOA meeting. Marcus let out a short laugh. Oh, we'll be bringing a lot to that meeting. Beth turned to the crowd. Who else here has had packages go missing? Hands shot up. More than a dozen people stepped forward, exchanging looks of realization. It wasn't just Marcus. This had been going on for months, possibly years. Greg folded his arms. Looks like we need to pay the compliance office a little visit. Patricia's face turned ghostly pale. The compliance office wasn't actually an office. It was a small, dusty storage shed located near the community center. No one ever really paid attention to it, assuming it was used for old HOA documents and maintenance supplies. But as the group approached, Patricia walked faster, trying to get ahead of them. Beth pulled out a set of keys. I'm on the HOA board. I have a master key. Patricia spun around. There's no need for that. I assure you everything is handled appropriately. Marcus narrowed his eyes. Then you won't mind us taking a look. Before she could protest, Beth unlocked the door and pushed it open. A collective gasp rippled through the group. Inside the shed, stacks of unopened packages filled the space, some still sealed, others clearly tampered with. Some had been opened, their contents missing. Electronics, jewelry boxes, prescription medication, valuable items that had never reached their rightful owners. Greg let out a low whistle. Well, looks like we found Patricia's little treasure trove. Patricia's entire body stiffened. This is a misunderstanding, she snapped. These were abandoned deliveries. I was ensuring their proper handling. Beth pulled a package off the shelf. This was addressed to me. It was supposed to be delivered a month ago. More neighbors stepped forward, recognizing their names on boxes that had never made it to their doorsteps. The quiet murmurs of disbelief turned into a full-blown uproar. You've been stealing from us. I never got my medication last winter. Did you take that too? You threatened to fine me for my lawn decorations while you were running a theft ring. Patricia's gaze darted around the furious crowd, her usual smug confidence crumbling. I was just... Marcus took a step forward. This isn't just an HOA overreach. This is theft. And you're going to pay for it. Patricia had always prided herself on being untouchable, but now, standing in front of the very people she had spent years bullying, she realized her power was slipping. Beth pulled out her phone. I'm calling the police. Patricia lunged forward. Wait, This can be handled internally. No need to involve outsiders. Marcus shook his head. You don't get to decide that. Beth ignored her, stepping away as she relayed the situation to law enforcement. Within minutes, sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder until 2 squad cars pulled up near the shed. An officer stepped out, taking in the scene, the furious residents, the stacks of stolen packages, and a very cornered Patricia. Ma'am, the officer said, turning to Patricia, we've received reports of mail theft. Do you have an explanation for all this? Patricia swallowed hard. This is being blown out of proportion. These were abandoned deliveries. One of the officers turned to Marcus. Do you have evidence she took these from private residences? Marcus nodded and pulled up his phone, replaying the footage of Patricia stealing his package. The officer's expression darkened. Ma'am, you're under arrest for mail theft and misappropriation of community funds. Patricia's jaw dropped. You can't do this. I'm the HOA president. The officer didn't even blink. Not anymore. As the cuffs clicked into place around her wrists, the neighborhood erupted into cheers. Patricia twisted in the officer's grip, shouting threats. You'll regret this. I made this neighborhood what it is. You're all ungrateful. Greg chuckled. Yeah, we'll manage just fine without you. As the officers led her to the squad car, Marcus turned to Beth and Greg. This is just the beginning. We need to go through every HOA record, every fine she's issued, every cent she's misused. Beth smirked. I was thinking the same thing. Greg nodded. Time to take our neighborhood back. As the patrol car disappeared down the street, carrying Patricia away from the community she had terrorized for years, Marcus felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Relief. And for the first time, the neighborhood truly felt like home again.